Excited about the opportunity to talk to you all today about the Bombshell battle plan. And I know that there have been a lot of folks that have called us in reference to Mark Skousen's newsletter, Forecast and Strategies, and the marketing piece that they have done to literally millions of Americans at this particular point in time. And so we felt that it was important for us to do a presentation. In fact, I gave this similar presentation in Orlando, but we did not record it. And so had a lot of folks that asked us to record it. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're actually recording this presentation. And so if you don't get it all, or you have to leave or whatever, we're going to have it recorded for you. But today we wanted to talk about your IRA specifically, and I hope that everybody that's here on the call has an IRA or a 401k, some kind of qualified account. And in fact, at times I'll just reference it as an IRA, but I'm referencing all qualified accounts, not just an IRA. So we're going to be talking about some strategies, and the main thing that I want to talk about is how to maximize your IRA, how to maximize it, to get the most out of it, most juice out of it. Now, you have been accumulating this money throughout the years. You've deducted it from your taxes. The money has been accumulating and compounding in a tax-deferred environment. But at some point in time, we have to pay the piper. $1 out of an IRA is taxed as $1 of new income to you in the year following the distribution. And that's the way it is. That's the way it was set up. You agreed to it, and we've accumulated this money along the way in our lives. One of the strategies that I'm going to talk to you today about is how to eliminate the tax altogether, and not eliminate the actual tax itself, but eliminate the contribution out of your pocket. So, in other words, let somebody else pay the conversion tax for you. You're all familiar with converting IRAs to a Roth. Well, this is like a Roth, but we're going to let someone else pay the taxes. And in fact, we're going to have a large U.S. corporation pay the tax. We're also going to talk about creating a tax-free multi-generation financial legacy. And this is a legacy that you will leave behind, taking some of your IRA money and making sure that no matter how much you spend down, no matter how the markets perform, no matter how your investments perform, how your real estate investments perform, any of those assets, uncorrelated assets, that we're going to make sure that we leave a financial legacy to our children and grandchildren. And this can be a legacy that can last generations and can have stipulations on it. We're also going to talk about how to generate tax-free income from this converted IRA. Now, we know that if you have an IRA and you do a Roth IRA, the money that you take out of the Roth is tax-free. And that would still be true. That's still in law. It's still a law. There are those that say that might sometime and someday go away, but I'm not one of those that feel that will ever change, because we've already paid the taxes. It's kind of hard to tax it again once we've already paid the taxes. And then when you take the money out of the IRA, out of the Roth IRA, you're going to have it that is tax-free. Well, we're going to talk about how to generate tax-free income for life. So those are our objectives. Well, let's talk about the IRA in general. We know that there's about $20 trillion in qualified accounts in the United States today. And the IRS has been patiently waiting and waiting and waiting for their due, to get this money that they've been patiently waiting for. And they know that someday it's going to get taxed. It's estimated that by 2030, we'll have 70 million Americans over age 65, and most of them will have IRAs, and most of them will be in income mode at that particular point in time. And That income mode can either be income that you're taking out because you need it, you need to live on it, or because you're forced to take it out. So there's two phases of an IRA. There's the accumulation phase, and most of us are in that phase where we're building this money. We've been building it through the years. We've been taking all of the risk. IRAs and Roth IRAs are all us. We are the risk takers here. And in 2008, when the market collapsed, there were people called me and said, "David, I had $1 million in my IRA. It's now worth $500,000. It was with TD Ameritrade. What am I going to do? What can I do to shore this up?" And that's the accumulation phase. All along, we have been assuming all of the risk. Then there's the distribution phase. That's when we take the money out. Now, we know that if we take the money out before 59.5, we have to pay a 10% penalty as well. So not only do we have to pay the income in the money that we take out, but if we take it out before 59.5, we have to pay a 10% penalty tax on top of that. And so we're in a situation where we usually try to hold off taking distributions until we are 60 years old. We know that there are some lesser-known rules called 72T that allow us to take money before 59.5 without having to pay that 10% tax. But there's a trick to that, and if you want to get into that, if that's your situation, certainly talk with us, and we can show you how to work 72T to your advantage. But let's just talk specifics about the required distribution. So, and the R in required in the RMD means required. You've got to take the money at age 70.5. And before we get into the distribution phase, though, in speaking with clients throughout the years, I came up with a list of 20 questions in what's called a personal qualified accounts evaluation form. And if you would like to have a hard copy of this, we'll download it to you and we can send it to you email. But if you'd like to have a printed colored copy of it, call my office, Cindy or Sarah, and ask them for a copy of this personal qualified account evaluation. This is your form. This is a form that you should fill out periodically because your IRA dynamics are going to change from year to year. And so you're going to want to have it in a situation where you answer these questions continuously. This should be almost an annual event. And so, again, it's a form that's downloadable. It's on our website. It's also, again, you can just call the gals and they'll send it to you, a hard copy of it. We'll even send you several copies if you would like. Let's just look at some of these questions, though. These are key questions that you need to ask yourself. One of the 20 is, what is the current value of all of your qualified accounts? And the reason why you want to know that, especially as you approach 70.5, is because the required distribution is going to be based on all accounts, on every dollar that you have. And so if you have some over here and some over there, whatever, you have to consolidate them all, and the RMD is based on the value of all of that. But what's the value of all of it? When will you need all or a portion of your required distributions to sustain your lifestyle? Are you going to have to live off your IRA? Is this something that is going to be required of you to sustain your current lifestyle? Another key question that you need to ask yourself is, who is your primary beneficiary? And make sure that you check this periodically. We were working with a gentleman the other day, and we were going over his estate and found out that his IRA beneficiary was his former spouse. And that's not necessarily a big problem in the fact that it could just be a recent situation. But he was married to his current spouse for 20 years. So his previous spouse 20 years ago was named as beneficiary, and he never did change that. So you want to make sure that you know who this primary beneficiary is. Who's the money going to go to when you pass away? And your custodians, your TD Ameritrades, your Schwabs, they're pretty good at distributing the money to that primary beneficiary, but they usually distribute it in a lump sum. They are not distribution experts. So you're going to want to understand what your goal is here in distributing the money to your primary beneficiary. We know that if your spouse is your primary beneficiary, she can roll that IRA into her own IRA, or she can roll it into yours, depending on which RMD factors are the most favorable. The next question you want to ask yourself out of these 20 questions is, who is your secondary beneficiary? So who is going to get the money should you both pass away, you and your spouse pass away? Who's second in command here? Who's going to get the money next? And then have you considered establishing some kind of distribution conditions or requirements? Now, if you have your regular custodians as the IRA beneficiaries, as the custodians, and you have a secondary beneficiary, they'll just give that secondary beneficiary the money straight up in a lump sum. So if your beneficiaries are in a substance abuse program, they're still going to give them the lump sum money. So you have no control over that. So is that something that you want to have as control of the distribution? Or do you want to just give it to them and let them figure it out on their own? If you want control, you have to have control mechanisms. And some of those mechanisms we'll talk about a little bit later. Another question, do you have beneficiaries you would like to help financially? If so, is it spelled out in your beneficiary form? Another question, have you considered the economics of converting your IRA to a Roth? This is a big question, and most people talk a lot about doing the Roth, but then they don't actually like the tax consequences of doing so, because when you convert to a Roth, you have to pay ordinary income taxes of the year following the Roth conversion. The next question would be, have you considered giving all or a portion of your IRA to a charity? Right now we know that we can give $100,000 to a charity per year from our IRA, and that counts towards our required distributions for the year if we're 70 and a half. So have you considered a charity in the mix? Another key question would be, are you satisfied? And this kind of is the big one, with the direction of your IRA investments. Are you happy where they're going? Do you enjoy the risk that you're taking? Would you like to have some kind of safe harbor with your IRA? Are you satisfied with the way things are going? And these are questions that you need to ask yourself. So let's now talk about the RMDs. First of all, we have an RMD at age 70 and a half. We know that. Our non-spousal beneficiaries also have RMDs. And currently, the RMD that they have is based on a factor that the IRS, a table that the IRS has established. And our non-spousal beneficiaries have to take RMDs the year after our passing. We also know that those beneficiaries, those beneficiaries of qualified accounts will have to take that, but also they'll have to take RMDs from a Roth account as well. Now, the difference, of course, with the Roth is there's no tax. But my biggest concern about the current structure that we have with RMDs, with non-spousal beneficiaries, is that it's only been a law since 2006. Prior to that, we had what was called the 5-year distribution rule. And we have seen the past president, for the 8 years that he was in office, try to get back to that pre-2006 rule. Right now, the rule is to stretch the IRA we have the ability to stretch the IRA based on the age of the non-spousal beneficiary. Well, I personally think that law is going to change back to the 5-year rule, and I think it's going to change sooner than later because Congress needs the money. For example, if I have a 5-year-old non-spousal beneficiary, he could stretch that distribution of my $1 million IRA that they inherit over their lifetime. That would be 80-plus years of distribution, of stretch. I don't think the IRS is going to allow that to continue on. Well, anyway, let's now then talk about what happens to this money. When the money is left to non-spousal beneficiaries, we found that 80% of all our IRA money is passed to beneficiaries instead of using it as income. And this is a current statistic. Now, I think as we see the baby boomers enter the retirement ages, I think that statistic is going to change somewhat. But right now, that's the stat. Another alarming statistic is that most IRA funds inherited by non-spousal beneficiaries, so this is the funds now, not the actual IRA, but the funds, the money that's there, is gone within 120 days. Why is that? Because we don't put stipulations on there on how the money is to be distributed. They receive it in a lump sum, and it's usually gone. And that is a problem. This is a problem especially if you want to leave some kind of a financial legacy for your family, for not only your generation and your spouse, but the next generation and the generations thereafter. So you want to be thinking about some control devices. Ed Slott, who is the nation's leading IRA expert, says this about the IRA beneficiary form. He says it's the most important document in your estate plan because it guarantees that the individuals you name as beneficiaries of what may be the single largest asset you own, which is your retirement savings, will indeed get that asset when you are gone. And so make sure that that beneficiary form is correct and that you have this set up in the distribution mode that you would like. Well, let's talk now about the distribution phase, when you now get to age 78 and a half and you have to take the money out. Now, you can take distributions, as I said, earlier than that. Prior to 59 and a half, you have the 10% penalty unless you elect 72T. After 59 and a half, you can take distributions, but you have to pay ordinary income tax on any of those distributions. The same holds true at age 70 and a half when we have our required distribution. But there's a problem with RMDs because what it does is it puts us into a situation where our IRA account now becomes a distribution machine. And instead of making contributions to make up for any losses that we might have in our investment accounts, we can no longer do that. So as long as our investments are performing good, we're fine. But if the investments take a direction south, head south, we're in a situation where we then start losing money and the distributions are based on a smaller factor or a smaller principal. You don't have the advantage of the dollar cost average once distributions begin. So not only can you not make more contributions into the IRA, you don't have the advantage of dollar cost averaging. And the RMD is always based on the prior year account balance. So you actually could have an account balance on December 31st that is higher than the amount that you have available to distribute the following year. So you want to make sure that there are no market losses once the distribution phase begins. You want to make sure that you park that money into a safe harbor and you take it out of risk. Because market losses will equal income losses along the way, and those income losses can last forever. So it's really a timing issue as well. You want to make certain that you distribute the required distribution, all of it. And that's why because if you don't, you have a 50% penalty if you do not distribute enough. So to do that, you want to take those assets that you have and make sure you eliminate any hard-to-value assets, because every year on December 31st, you have to do an evaluation, and there has to be a price check as to what those assets are valued. You want to then change those assets again back to safe money investments. Get them out of harm's way and make it easy on yourself. Well, if any of you are approaching 70 and a half, or you are there right now, you know what the factors are. This is a published table that the IRS gave us. In fact, they actually improved this table a few years ago. But right now, if I have $1 million in my IRA, and the factor is 27.4, so you divide the $1 million by 27.4, my IRA distribution is $36,496 for the year. That's how much I have to take out, which is 3.65%. At 75, if the account is still at $1 million, so I've actually earned at least what my RMD factor is, or the 3.65, and then going up every year, and I still have $1 million, my factor is 22.9, which is $43,000. And at age 80, it's 18.7. So you can see that's about a $20,000 difference between age 70 and 80 that you have to take out in required distributions. Next question then is, well, what if I don't need the RMD? Now, there are many that absolutely desperately need that RMD. In fact, they're taking money aggressively out of their IRA to live on, and that's fine. That's what you save that money for. But as I showed you earlier, the statistic says that only 20% of our RMDs and our IRAs are used for income. The rest of it is left to named beneficiaries. So, if you're in a situation where you don't need the RMD, what to do with it? What can you do with it? Well, I recommend that you use this wisely. The first option is that you spend it. But once you spend that IRA, that money is gone. It's gone forever. You'll never have that money back again. So be careful and vigilant and use this money wisely. You could invest it, but just like your IRA or like your Roth, you're going to have risk. And as you invest that, the key thing that you want to remember is that when you invest it, a Roth and or your RMD is only worth what it is worth. So if you take that $36,000 that we talked about on our 70-and-a-half-year-old with $1 million IRA, and the only reason why I used $1 million is because it's a figure that's easy to multiply and divide. But it is only worth what it's worth when you take that out to invest it. So if I take the $36,000 and I put it in a mutual fund, it's only going to be worth what I have accumulated that year. You could also give it to charity, as we talked about. We talked about giving $100,000 to a charity. You could do that. But once you do that, you disinherit your family. So your family will never, ever have that money. You've given it away to a charity. You could actually give the cash, the RMD, outright to your children and say, I really don't need this money right now to live on. Here, you guys, you take the $36,000 and you figure it out. You figure out what you want to do with it. And a lot of folks do that. And I have no problem with that, except a gifted dollar is only worth $1. And it can't be controlled. Once it's given to them, you have no control. And if it is spent, it has no future earning power. So there is another option, and I believe this is the best of the four options that I've given you thus far. It's the fifth option. It's called the RMD leverage strategy. Now, many of you that have received the Bombshell Battle Plan report have read about this RMD leverage strategy, and hopefully all of you have received the report either electronically or a hard copy. If you want to get a hard copy of it, I'll give you some information here at the end of our webinar, and I'll tell you how to get the hard copy of it. Many of you have received my best-selling book, The Family Bank Strategy. If you haven't, you can get it on Amazon for $24.95, or you can get it. There's a special opportunity here. We're going to let the listeners today get that book. But I would encourage you to have that companion book to the Bombshell Battle Plan, because it delves into a lot of these things a little deeper. But the RMD leverage strategy, so I'm taking the unwanted RMD and I'm going to supercharge that gift. So instead of just giving my children the $36,000, I'm going to supercharge it. I'm going to guarantee that no matter what happens to my investments, no matter what happens to all of the assets that I have in my IRA, that this RMD is going to be a guarantee future gift to my kids. No matter how much I spend down, this money is going to be there. No matter how poorly I do in investments, it's going to be guaranteed to my kids. And that I will have complete control all the way throughout. Not only when I distribute it to them, but when I'm gone, I'll have complete control over it. The key to this, though, is you're taking this RMD that you're going to pay taxes on and the year following your RMD, and you're going to take that and you're going to convert it to a totally tax-free inheritance, 100% tax-free, income and estate tax-free. And this is key. So the RMD leverage strategy provides those key benefits. So let's look at an example. Let's now assume that I have a client that is this 70 and a half, and he's 70. Let's say for our example purposes, he's 70 and his wife is 70. And the RMD factor is 27.4, so it's $1 million IRA, and so it's $36,000, as we said earlier, is his required distribution. And he's going to pay 25% in taxes on this. He's not necessarily in the 25% tax bracket. The tax on that $36,000 would be 25%. So that would leave him with a net $27,372. By implementing the RMD leverage strategy through a joint and survivor life insurance policy, we call it a JLS or joint option, they would immediately, if they set up the wealth creation plan, be insured for $1.5 million. So that means that if they had put in the $27,000 and both passed away the next day, their family would receive $1.5 million tax-free. That's in the wealth creation strategy. As you can see, that's a significant return on my investment. But I'm going to pay that $27,000. I'm going to make that deposit $27,000 every year till we're age 100. So the wealth creation factor then continues at $1,500,000. So it doesn't increase; it just stays at $1.5 million. So day one, it's worth $1.5 million, and day 10 and 10 years. 20 years, it's $1.5 million. And that's called the wealth creation strategy. A lot of folks do that. A lot of folks implement that. But I recommend that you consider the family bank strategy instead of just the wealth creation. You can see the life insurance benefit that you're going to create is a little bit less, about $100,000 less. But you're also going to be building up a tax-free family bank account. And you can see that in the 10th year, that account is worth $300,000, and in the 20th year, it's worth $800,000. And that's key because that is money that you will be able to access throughout your life. Not only is that key that you'll have money, you'll be able to access that money tax-free throughout your life. You'll be able to use it for anything, for income, for emergencies, for investment opportunities. Let me just give you a real quick example. I have a plan very similar to this, and I had my accountant told me about a $50,000 investment that I needed to make to get into a pool, a limited partnership. I could have borrowed the money from my bank, but I'd have had to pay interest on that. I could have borrowed it, taken it out of cash flow, but if I ever needed that money for anything, it would be gone. What if the investment turned sour? I went over and looked at the property, and it looked like a good deal, and so I actually decided I was going to do it. But rather than use a bank or my cash flow, I called the insurance company up, and I had about $250,000 of cash in my policy. And I borrowed from the insurance company the $50,000, using $50,000 of my $250,000 as collateral for the loan. I then took that $50,000 that the insurance company gave me, and I invested it. And lo and behold, I was able to turn that $50,000 within a year about 8 times. I explain this example in my book, in the Family Bank Strategy book. But the key is that had I have died, it was $1 million policy that I had on myself. Had I have died while that loan was outstanding, my family would have received $950,000. That's how the loan would have gotten paid back. But because I parlayed it, I just put the money back in. We have clients that are using this cash value for large purchases like cars, like vacations. You can use this cash for anything. A lot of clients use this cash in the family bank for income. They turn this cash into tax-free income for the rest of their life. If you want to see how this specifically worked for you, the RMD leverage strategy, may I recommend that you call Sarah or Macy and schedule an appointment with myself or Todd, and we'll go over the logistics on how this would work for you, because everybody will be different. But this example here is for a 71-year-old male and a 71-year-old female. Look at the return on investment for the life insurance on the family bank strategy. In the 10th year, it would be a 29%. That means you would have to earn 29% in some outside investment before tax to equal what you're going to receive on the return on investment on putting in the $27,000 over that 10-year period of time. In 20 years, that you would have put in your return on investment would be 8.5%. That means you'd have to earn at least 8.5% somewhere else year after year. And remember, with the family bank, there is no risk. No risk not only to the life insurance, but there's no risk to that cash accumulation. So you're totally taking it out of harm's way, and there's no risk, and you're accumulating tax-free wealth, and that tax-free wealth, and that will be yours, and you'll be able to receive that distribution throughout the years. Okay, well, now let's talk about the next idea, which is called the IRA reboot strategy. And this is when I talked in the very, very first slide, we talked about where we wanted to go today, our goals, where we wanted to end up. And one of the things that we want to do is show you how you can use somebody else's money to pay the tax liability. And that's what the IRA reboot strategy is. But now I'm going to change, and I'm going to use a 65-year-old male and female. So we're not actually using the IRA RMD. We're just using the IRA. And in this case, this client has a $500,000 IRA that he wants to transfer. Now, you don't have to obviously transfer all of it. This could just be a part of his total IRA monies. But in this case, we're going to transfer $500,000. But we're going to do it not at one time, because if we did it all at one time, we'd have to pay a tax on that $500,000 the following year. So we're going to do it over a 5-year period of time. And we're going to take that $100,000, and I'm assuming that we're not going to earn any interest in the IRA. And we have interest-bearing accounts that you would really, that will do very, very well in this scenario. We have structured cash flow, which is earning up around 7%. You can use deferred annuities. There are vehicles that you can use for this funding to get it out of harm's way. But right now, let's just say you keep the money exactly where it is in your brokerage account, and you take the money out at $100,000 a year over a 5-year period of time. And you're going to deposit that $100,000 into the family bank strategy. Now, those of you that read my book, The Family Bank Strategy, you'll know that there is a strategy within the strategy, that an option that you have where you can set up the plan where you do what's called a max funded. So you stuff the policy with as much cash as you possibly can based on the law. And the law is Section 7702 of the Internal Revenue Code. And it allows you to accumulate and compound tax-free wealth within the family bank strategy. And that money continues to compound tax-free. And so when you stuff the policy with as much as you possibly can, you're just going to increase the accumulation throughout the years. And so that's what we're going to do in this case. And it's a special kind of life insurance policy. Again, it's a joint policy in our example here, but it's a special kind of joint policy because it has a lot of cash value early on. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take money from the insurance company through the loan process that I explained earlier on that loan that I did for that investment, and you're going to borrow the money from the insurance company in year 2. You're going to borrow the $25,000 tax liability that you have for that cash that you took out, and you're going to use that you're going to do that years 2 through 6. Now, obviously, this strategy would work. This accumulation strategy would work even better if you didn't take the cash out of the policy to pay the taxes. It would work better, obviously, because you're taking money from the cash of the policy. It would accumulate more. You'd have more to compound, more to accumulate. But let's just work with what we're working with here, and we're taking the money out over years 2 through 6 to pay the taxes. Well, let's look at how the joint policy would work. Again, 65-year-old male, 65-year-old female, and pretty good health. Again, we're transferring the $500,000 over that 5-year period of time, and we're max funding the policy. That's called minimum coverage, maximum tax-free cash. That's what our goal is, and we're going to pay the taxes 2 through 6. So here's the net results. Again, what we want to do now is we want to compare this to a Roth, because that's what we're going to do. We're converting the 65-year-old couple has the option to do a Roth. But remember, a Roth is only worth what a Roth is worth. So if in the first year I converted my $100,000, because I'm doing it over the 5-year period of time, and I earned 6% actually earned 7, but I have to pay my 1% investment fee, so I ended up with 6%. My $100,000 would be worth $106,000 at the end of year 1. That's it. That's all it would be worth. My family bank strategy would be worth $1.8 million. Now, you're obviously not going to all pass away, and both husband and wife, 65-year-old, at the end of the first year. But you can see the dynamics of the first year. But let's look at the 10th year. In my Roth, leaving it alone to accumulate, not touching it, just leaving it alone, and it's tax-free accumulation, it would be worth $548,000, again, at the 6% compounding. Well, my value to my beneficiaries, because I've taken money out to pay the taxes from my policy, would be $1.6 million in the 10th year, significantly 3 times greater than what the Roth is worth. And in the 20th year now, assuming that I was able to earn 7% every year after year on my Roth with no risk, no losses, you'd have to be very clairvoyant to be able to do that every year, and you'd have to be like a prophet to get that 7% every year. But let's just say you did. Even in the 20th year, when you were 85 years old as a couple, it would be worth about $1 million, and your life insurance benefit would be $1.5 million. So you can see the return on investment in the 20th year on the joint option would be 11.2. That's how much you would have to earn in an investment outside to equal what you get with the family bank strategy. And of course, 85, both of you passing away at 85 is a lot more likely than it would be when you were 65 back in the very first year. Now, what about the cash accumulation, though? Because the family bank is a plan that we have that accumulates cash. It's something that we have that is a cash account for us, and we're trying to accumulate wealth. Well, in the family bank, you can see that at the end of the 10th year, you would have $541,000. You'd have $611 in the Roth, but you wouldn't have the life insurance benefit, so the Roth would only be worth $611, whereas the insurance would be worth $1 million. The insurance in this case would be worth $1.8 million, and the $1.6 million in the 10th year. In the 20th year, the Roth and the family bank strategy cash value would be about the same, all things being equal, earning the same return, 7% in the Roth account minus the 1% investment fee, and earning the indexed account of 7%. Now, obviously, I'm not going to have time today to get into how we get to that 7% in the indexed account, but that has been the average return over the last 20 years in indexed universal life. If you back test it past 20 years, just using the S&P 500 as the marker. Well, what have we done here? On the joint option, we have created several key advantages. The first thing we've done is we have taken out of our estate $500,000. Now, we've actually removed it from our estate, so therefore it's not going to be part of our estate tax or inheritance tax in the state of New York or Washington. It's not going to be a part of those assets because it's out of the estate. We've also increased the estate initially to $1.8 million. We've paid the conversion tax of $125,000. And then in year 10, we have a net $541,000. In year 20, we have $1 million. This is cash that we're building up that's tax-free. And that cash can be turned into lifetime tax-free income if you want to. You can set it up one way and change it later. You can set it up for a legacy play, or you can set it up for an income play. The key is that this is your tax-free account that you're building up. And it's very difficult for people to get to change their clothing from taxable to tax-free. But this is a total tax-free opportunity. And if you take this out of income, there are no 1099s. There's nothing to report. There's the IRS doesn't take account of this. There's no reportable income, and therefore other income that gets taxed, such as Social Security income, would not play into this. It would not be a factor in that. So that's very key that you have that. Now, let's just, for the remaining moments that we have, let's talk about a single life option in using the IRA reboot concept. So we've talked about a joint option. Now, and that's usually the most economical way to do it because the cost of insurance is significantly less, and therefore you're able to maximize Section 7702, the tax-free code. But let's just say we're looking at a single life. And let's just say we have a female 60 and she's in pretty good health. And again, we're doing the same contribution over a 5-year period of time. We're spreading the tax over 5 years, so we're doing the IRA distribution over 5 years. And there are 3 basic options that you can consider. When you call us, we can show you all 3, or you can say, I want this particular option. And you can do this with the joint policy as well. For the joint policy, I kind of showed you a middle-of-the-road one. But the first option would be to do what's called an accumulation option. So where they say, I just want to take the $100,000 a year for 5 years. I want to convert it. I want to pay the taxes through the cash value, but I want the cash value to accumulate so that I can have this huge tax-free cash event for later distribution. And you can see that in the 15th year, by doing this, paying the taxes year 2 through 6, you're going to have about $600,000 in cash accumulated. In 20 years, almost $800,000 in cash accumulated. And that's key because that is money that's there for you to use for major purchases, for investments, for opportunities, and to convert to the second option, which is the cash option. You don't have to decide to take the cash option up front. You can just leave the money to accumulate and then convert it to cash. But if you said, well, David, I want to set it up so that when I am, in this case, she's 60 years old, so I'm 76 years old, I'd like to start taking income for the rest of my life. What kind of income is this? This is tax-free income because you're taking it out through the loans through the insurance company, and there's no 1099s. But you can stipulate in the policy that that income is guaranteed for the rest of your life. And that's what we're doing here. So that'd be $75,000. Now, you were insured for the same amount initially, but in year 16, you converted the cash to tax-free income for the rest of your life. And you can see the effects in the 20th year here. As you can see in the 20th year, the effects of the life insurance benefit by taking this income out over that period of time. The next option would be the legacy option. And in this option, you say, I really don't really need any of this cash. I mean, I want cash, but I don't need it. That's not my focus. And I don't really need the income, but I want to have more of a legacy. I want to leave more behind for my family. Well, this here would be the legacy play. You would still see we have significant cash value. In fact, we have $500,000 in 20 years, but our life insurance benefit is $1.6 million instead of $1.1 million here in the policy if you use this straight up like in that scenario. So again, all of this is assuming a 7% return. Todd can show you specifically how that is attainable. It's very logical, attainable. But if you said, well, I don't think you can attain 7%, this works using a 6% option. So let's just see what we've accomplished. What have we done here? Well, with our 60-year-old, we have created a tax-free wealth transfer of $500,000, just the same as we did with the joint. We have a tax-free increase in the estate of $1.5 million. We've paid the conversion taxes. We have the cash account available to us. We can also take out income if we want for the rest of our life. We can convert that to income. And we have reduced the future income tax liability when we take that income. But one key element that wasn't on the joint plan straight up was the long-term care benefit. And if we do individual plans, we can have what's called an individual long-term care benefit, which will pay out a long-term care cash, tax-free cash of $10,000 a month for 50 months coming out of the life insurance benefit, but it's tax-free coming out for long-term care. On the joint option that we looked at earlier, you can have that on the surviving spouse that option is available to you. But on the individual plan, we usually include this in every plan that we don't do any income with the income strategy that we talked about earlier. So let's, in conclusion, before we open it up for questions, I wanted to talk about Ed Slott's recent statement that he made on his PBS broadcast. He says, by leveraging your taxable retirement assets into tax-free life insurance, you have the ability to turn a highly taxed asset like your retirement account into many times its current value. And so true is that. And Ed is a CPA. He has nothing to. He's not an insurance guy. He believes that this is the best way to do it. In fact, in his a recent article, he suggested that this is way better, not only than a Roth, but just keeping the money in your IRA. Well, we've talked a lot about a lot of concepts here, and I've gone very, very fast to get us into our webinar mode here. We'll do this again, and maybe in a different version. But what you're going to want to do at this point is you're going to set a time to talk with myself or Todd about your specific scenario. I just used examples of 71-year-olds and a 65-year-old and 60-year-olds as a generic idea, but you are all individuals. You're specific. What if, though, you can't qualify? What if you're just totally uninsurable and you can't qualify for insurance? So this is way out of your reach. If you have family members like children or grandchildren, you can actually use them as the insured. And you can maintain ownership of the policy, so you control all the cash value. And then when you pass away, ownership reverts to the kids. We call this the multi-generation strategy. And sometimes it works even if you are insurable. It works better because you may be 80, 81, 82 years old, and therefore it doesn't work. The family bank idea doesn't work quite as effective. The wealth creation works fine, but the family bank doesn't work quite as effective. And so a lot of our clients are using their children and insuring their children. Then when they pass away, the ownership of the plan transfers to the kids, tax-free. So then they have not only do they have a tax-free account, a cash account that they're building and accumulating, they will have the life insurance benefit that will benefit eventually your grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So you're going to want to sign up for a complimentary consultation. Just call the toll-free number that I'm going to show you here in a second. Most of you have that number because you've called in for the reports. But we'd like you to, if you could, fill out this RMD leverage strategy or IRA reboot analysis request form before our appointment. And you can get that by asking Sarah or Macy to send it to you. It's also on our website, but you certainly can have access to that. And we'd like you to complete that before the interview if you could. It's also highly recommended that you have the companion book, The Family Bank Strategy, and we're making it available. You can get it at Amazon.com for $24.95, but you can also get it today, and we'll also send you a hard copy of the Bombshell Battle Plan special report for $9.95, which basically is our cost of printing and shipping, just getting it out to you. Well, let's now open this up for questions. I'm going to keep Macy's beautiful face and Sarah's beautiful face here for a while we answer these questions, but there's our toll-free number. Also, their email addresses for you to request the evaluation form. And also, I think you should, if it were me, I would certainly want to have the 20 quick key questions and ask them to send that to you as well. That's something that you can have. So let's now unmute this, and anybody have any questions, just shoot. Answer these questions as well.
How do I do that?
Does anybody have any questions? You're all unmuted, so don't say anything bad.
Hello?
Right now. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
I need your 800 number out loud, please.
Okay, the 800 number is 888-892-1102.
Thank you.
Okay? 888-892-1102. And our website is epmez.com. epmez.com.
What is that again?
epmez.com.
Okay.
Any other
EPM.
questions? Elephant Paul, Mary Elephant Zebra.com.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no more general questions, or I know that you have specific questions, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set a time to call the girls, call Macy or Sarah, set a time with Todd or myself, and we'll answer any of your specific questions that you might have. But and we'll also talk with you about your personal situation and circumstance. And thank you so very much for attending today, and look forward to talking to you all. Take care. Bye now.
Get a recording?